Welcome to Grow Yourself Up. It's episode 121. And today I'm going to focus on time when we are like taking a break or we are hoping to spend quality time with our children and how sometimes that can really unravel and make us feel like we are terrible parents, particularly if we have a core of shame. So this episode will be released on this 18th of February, I think. And it's around the time that in the UK people have half term, and there's often like a midterm break in this school term. And because it's winter, it often makes it a lot more complicated to spend time with our children because it's not easy to be outside. And particularly when we have childhood trauma, our experience of our experience of parenting is impacted in two main ways, or let's say three main ways. We have a whole bunch of unhelpful coping strategies, which is how we've learned to survive in our home. So we may be very perfectionist. We may dissociate constantly. We may shut down. We may need to lock down control over everything. We may think we need to do everything by ourselves. So we really struggle to ask for help. We may have a fantasy that we have to be absolutely perfect for things to be good enough because we're desperately trying not to repeat our own childhood. But we have like a kind of a bunch of strategies that are adaptive when they first originated. And what that means is they were useful. They helped you live. That's why you're here. So we want to be grateful to those strategies. Excuse me. But in adult life, they are not grown up. They are unhelpful. Like as an adult, you need to be able to ask for help. It's important to ask for help. Hyper-independence is something that makes us much more vulnerable, actually. So we've got those unhelpful coping strategies. We've got a core of shame. So when we don't get our needs met in childhood, and I'm talking about from very early, from like our baby states, we had people who were unable to connect with us, and not to shame or blame them, just that they had their own trauma, struggles, limitations, generational trauma, which meant they weren't able to even connect to themselves. So how could they connect to their baby? So that core of shame that we get left with means that we toil to keep away from that shame. So we often are like really targeting perfection because experiencing that sense of shame is so painful. And then lastly, another kind of main category I would suggest is anxiety. So we are prone to being really anxious about things, being really worried, like really stressing and overthinking about things. And those together can make like a period of time, an extended period of time with your children, either in a holiday or a half term, that can make it very complex. Because you're starting like with, first of all, a lot of pressure on yourself because you're trying to get things perfect, a lot of expectation, and these unrealistic coping strategies, which mean, for example, you might want to control the whole time, and you might really want it to be perfect. And that's like an impossible thing. So I want to kind of give you some pointers and questions to think about so that you can cultivate a connected and loving and authentic time with your kids. Like as much as you can, rather than trying to focus on things that are unrealistic and that are actually really painful for you. So I'm going to give you some kind of brief pointers on this. So first of all, I want you to ask yourself the question, what are your intentions? If you're going to be having a bit of time with your kids that you don't normally have, what are your intentions? So I'll tell you what's happening for me. My intention is to spend some lovely quality time with my girls, to do things that give us all joy and things that are manageable for me. And so I can arrange them in a way that's manageable for me without being going into sort of perfection and without needing them to be behaving in a certain way or like delivering some sort of validation for me or anything. So I've got quite simple intentions. I want to spend some connected time with them and I don't want to be exhausted. So I'm not a fan of like planning lots of things in a day where I have to rush from place to place because I find that too much and too stressful. The second thing I want you to think about is, what are your expectations? So, for example, if you've got two children who fight a lot, like I do actually, or you've got two children who struggle with transitions or who can be extremely aggressive or who struggle with new things, would be unrealistic to pack into this time that you're going to be with them a whole lot of new things, because and especially if you've got expectations that they're going to just kind of calmly take it in their stride, that's not going to work, because you're going to be disappointed, and those expectations are going to kind of really be painful for you in a way. So, for example, like my kids fight quite a lot, and so I need to be pretty regulated, especially around transitions for them, and especially when they're tired. And we do better going outside of the house and into nature or into the playground or into the park a couple of times a day, because that helps us all regulate. I enjoy that, and they love being out and about. So for me, it's not realistic to think I'm going to stay at home all day, because that will make it harder for all of us. I also like to go out for a walk. So, they can take their bikes, or they can take they've got dolls, which they like to push around in little prams. Well, actually, they're adult-sized buggies now, but they like to push those around. And so, and also, I don't plan like loads of new things, because, like on multiple days, because one of my daughters gets really anxious about things. And so that means there's a lot more for me to hold if I am packing in tons of new things, because I have to hold, like I have to think, how am I going to drive there? Or if we're going public transport, how am I going to get there? How am I going to hold all their stress and anxiety if I myself don't quite know the context? So if we think about from a nervous system point of view, if we're drawing on some polyvagal theory, what will help all of your nervous systems, there's three things that Deb Dan always talks about: context, choice, and connection. So if you know the context of what you're going to do, you can like rest into that, and then that will make you more kind of calmer in your nervous system, which will give out signs of safety to your children. So context that you know is helpful in that case. Connection, so it's helpful then if you go with a friend who you really love, or someone that you really get on with, because that connection for both of you, like if you say you're two moms or two dads or a mom and a dad or whatever, that connection is like a bridge for both of you, and means that together we can all be better regulated. And the last thing is choice. So, you can bring choice in throughout the day for your kids about, which part of the park do they want to go to, or what do they want to play on first, or like small choices. And it can be more complex, like mine will fight about the choices and who is going to have the choice. So we have to alternate who's going to have the choice. And then I have to really keep track of that, because otherwise sometimes all hell breaks loose if the same child has got the choice twice. So, really be kind of realistic with your expectations, and notice how you can introduce choice for all of you, because that will help your nervous systems, and then that will help you have a more joyful time. You're more likely to be in ventral vagal if you're getting signs of safety into your nervous system. And then a point which is sometimes we don't talk enough about is like, what are our struggle points? So, and I'm going to show you something about a struggle point that I have. So you've heard me talk about how I struggle with transitions, and you probably heard me talk about how my children struggle with transitions, but via the kind of the journey I've had with my children, I have really come to see how much I struggle with transitions, actually, never mind them. I really struggle with getting myself out of the house. And that is like really exacerbated the more things I have to do. So say if I say to myself, right, I'm going to do some exercise, then I'm going to have breakfast, I'm going to have a cup of tea, then I'm going to have a shower, then I'm going to do my makeup, and I'm going to dry my hair, and then I'm going to leave the house. Honestly, I'll probably be leaving the house at like 12, like lunchtime, especially because it's going to be like a self-driven thing. If I have to get to like a work appointment, I'm much better. But when I'm spending time with my children, obviously it's that I'm taking them out, and so I'm the primary caregiver for them, and I have to mobilize them and myself. So, like for example, when I take them out in the mornings to go to their educational setting, I I try and cut out of as many of those things as possible. So I literally get up and get into my clothes, and I make their lunch boxes, and I have a cup of tea, and we'll have my lemon water. I have a cup of tea. I cannot engage in like I've always wished I could be one of those parents who would like get up at 5:30 and like, don't know, do a workout and I don't know, do some of their work or something, and then be like dressed and made up by the time the kids arrive or wake up. That's like never going to happen for me. It's just not. And it's not that I'm not that efficient. It's that there's lots of reasons I struggle with transitions, which I might tell you in a future episode. But so I've had to be really honest about that as a struggle point, like really confront that I need to have as few things to do along my kind of, I don't know, what can we call it? My sort of, there's some consulting term I could use, like my pathway to getting out of the house, or my, so it's my critical path. I have to be really honest that I have to have as few rocks on my critical path as possible, because otherwise I can get really easily derailed, which looks like dilly-dallying for ages before I get in the shower, adding more tasks onto my critical path, which are like completely unrelated to what we're trying to do that day and do not need to be on the critical path to leaving the house. Just like really slowing down, kind of going into a free state. So for me, in this time that I will be spending with my kiddies, I have to make some real practical planning decisions. So that's things like I'll wash my hair the night before. I will just get up and brush my teeth and wash my face and put my clothes and my deodorant on. And I'll put some face cream on or something. And then maybe I'll do my makeup on the way. Or maybe I'll do my makeup in the loo when I get to the place, or maybe I'll just go without makeup. But I will remove as many things as possible. Like, it's important for me that I brush my teeth and that I have my clothes on. Obviously, that's important that I have my clothes on, but I've really let go of like having to look polished all of the time. So I can kind of like really rationalize to myself how I can make my critical path much shorter so that I can actually do the things I've committed to, because I've had a lot of time blindness, and I'm really trying to sort of repair that and kind of notice what's impeding me in some way. So what are your struggle points? Like, do you also struggle with transitions? Do you spin out in the actual transition and decide that it's like a good idea to move your furniture around or do all the washing you can see before you leave? Or like, it's a good time to do some new research. That's the sort of thing that I decide. I quickly go to the loo before my shower, and then I'm like, okay, now this is a good time to do some research. No, it's not a good time to do some research. So really notice what your struggle points are. Notice how you are contributing pain to your own existence and to your time with your children. Because what happens then actually is they get more and more kind of stressed, and they're clustering around me and clamoring for my attention and everything, and I then get irate. But I have really kind of, I've prolonged the whole process, so no wonder they're getting irate and they're getting stressed because I'm sending out more stress signals. So I've really had to notice, okay, like, where am I making the emotional temperature in the house much more sort of stress than it needs to be. Okay, so really look at what are your struggle points? Be honest with yourself. There's no need to have shame about this. We are each as we are. I know some of the reasons that I have issues with transition, and I'm working to kind of tend to that in my own life. And, there's no point in shaming or berating yourself for that. And then as part of that, I want you to be really honest about what you can manage, what you enjoy, your capacity, and where you are your own worst enemy. So be really honest about your capacity. You might look around at other parents or other mothers or your sister or your brother or whoever and think, oh, they're so amazing the way they do that. They can handle this, this, and this, and I can't handle that, or whatever. Don't criticize yourself for that. Don't compare. Really be honest about your capacity and what you enjoy. They might love going to museums and you all just prefer going to the park, or they may seem more sophisticated, or I don't know, whatever, but we can all punish ourselves with endless projections, and I'm really urging you not to do that. Be very gentle with yourself and be honest about what you can manage. And then, really, really importantly, I want you to consider, how do you soothe yourself when you feel shame? When you're feeling really bad about something, when you've shouted at your kids, when you're worried about something, when you've taken on too much and you've kind of gone into a shame cycle, how do you help yourself with that? Is there a friend you can call? Can you phone your partner if you have one? Can you do some journaling? Can you speak really kindly to yourself? Because when we tend to have more intense, concentrated periods with our children, shame may come up more because we get more danger signals and because we're kind of challenging ourselves in many ways. A lot of parenting is very challenging. So really notice what are the resources that you can use to manage your shame and to mitigate it and to help you with shame resilience. To really, you might have a friend who you can just WhatsApp or leave a Marco Polo video with and tell her what's going on. And, a loving voice note can make all the difference. You might have a mother who's loving who you could call and she might help you deal with the shame. And sometimes we're just by ourselves and we have to really sort of love ourselves through that. So think about things that have helped you. It often helps me to remember that my children really love and adore me and want to be with me, and to kind of see myself through their eyes and also see how, like if I've shouted at them, how that really pains and hurts them, and to use that to kind of come back into connection, to repair, not to shame myself a lot, to really notice why I might have done that, what was overwhelming, had I pushed myself to do something, had I taken on too much? Because often when we take on too much and we overcommit to things, already we've set ourselves up for like a bit of a disastrous time. So this is just to sort of really help you in your growing yourself up process, but also how can you really love and resource yourself? Because often it's us and the kids and like we're on the front line of managing things. So be really mindful about what you can manage and what you can cope with and what you like. So just to kind of go through some of those pointers again, notice what are your intentions, like get really clear about what your intentions are. What are your expectations? Try not to have really high expectations. Get really honest about what are your struggle points. And then like plan beforehand, how do you soothe yourself when you feel shame? How can you come back? Because when we're feeling a lot of shame, we're way down the autonomic ladder, often in shutdown. How can you help yourself out of that, particularly if you're the only adult? And self-compassion is the quickest way to do that. It's it's that massive, it's not a secret tool. It's like the most amazing, massive tool. So if you can always turn compassionately to yourself, that will make a huge, huge difference. Okay, so I know that other countries, I think everyone in Australia has just gone back to school. The US, maybe you're having a midterm break. I think it varies per state. South Africa is not on holiday, not at half term yet, but everyone in the UK, you'll be kind of grappling with this around this time. So I'm sending you so much love, and I hope that you, as the parent, can also have a joyful time. Okay, we'll be back next week with a new episode. Take really good care.